So here's the scenario. A US football player gets a red card in a World Cup game and is supposed to sit out the next game, according to FIFA rules, that is. But Donald Trump calls the FIFA boss, and next thing you know, the match suspension is history. Now, that's allegedly what happened in the case of this guy. Folarin Balogun was sent off after a red card in the US game against Bosnia and Herzegovina last week. Now, that red card earned him a one-match suspension, meaning that he wouldn't get to play in the match against Belgium on Monday, July the 6th. But according to reporting from the Associated Press, AFP and Reuters and many others, US President Donald Trump personally called FIFA President Gianni Infantino asking for a review of the red card and that suspension. And over the weekend, this development. FIFA comes out with a statement saying, quote, "The match suspension is suspended for a probationary period of 1 year." And then Donald Trump weighed in with his appreciation in a post on Truth Social, saying, "Thank you to FIFA for doing what was right and reversing a great injustice. President Donald J. Trump." So that's probably Donald J. Trump telling FIFA, thank you for your attention to this matter. For more, let's speak to DW Sports correspondent Jonathan Crane, who's in the studio with us. Jonathan, welcome. Is it clear, can we say with absolute certainty, that Donald J. Trump did call Gianni Infantino?
I don't think we can say with absolute certainty, but I think we're moving beyond speculation at this point. I mean, as you mentioned before, several media outlets, including the agencies, the New York Times, one of the first to report it. I mean, The Guardian even saying that he made multiple calls, 3 calls to Gianni Infantino. And it's not really surprising. We know how close they are, how close a relationship they have. I think we're going to touch on that shortly. Yep. He probably has him saved away in his phone contacts. And if you're the President of the United States, why wouldn't you use that possibility?
You need to have that speed dial function. I'm sure he probably has that. But just again, speculation. But Jonathan, why would a US president need to intervene on behalf of another player involved in a red card send-off and a match suspension in a World Cup that you're hosting?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of totally unprecedented in a way. We've never had a situation like this. And usually sport operates on the principle, football operates on the principle that the referee's decision is final. What happens on the field of play is the end of it. Now, for a sitting president to get involved in this, again, he probably is getting involved because he can, because he has that relationship with Gianni Infantino. But this has never happened before, not that I can recall anyway. Obviously, sometimes sporting decisions do get appealed. That's why you have appeals bodies and things like that. But for a politician to lobby a sports organisation for a sporting decision to be overturned, a lot of people will be scratching their head thinking, how is this allowed to happen?
And I think a lot of people will also be scratching their heads as to the extent of the relationship that Gianni Infantino has with Donald Trump, because they do seem to have a very close relationship, right, Jonathan?
Yeah, some may call it a bromance.
A bromance, we like that word.
If you will. I mean, yeah, Donald Trump and Gianni Infantino, you know, have long had this relationship. There's been several kind of moments where you kind of, again, scratch your head and think, is this for real? I mean, FIFA has opened an office in Trump Tower. Gianni Infantino was invited to Donald Trump's inauguration. He was attending some of these kind of summits, peace talks, business meetings with political leaders, and he was the only sports official or any non-political official at these events. And then I think the kind of crowning moment, if you would like, was when FIFA inaugurated this FIFA Peace Prize, and Donald Trump was the first recipient. And a lot of people saw that as a way of Infantino currying favour with Trump, making up for the fact that Trump didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, which he was obviously very disappointed about. And as soon as that award was announced, everyone knew there was only going to be one winner, and it was Donald Trump. Would
that count as a FIFA own goal? In that case?
I think for a lot of people, that was maybe the final straw. And as a result of that, an ethics complaint was raised to FIFA's ethics committee. It was supported by the Norwegian Football Federation. It's also now been backed by European members of parliament. To say, look, this contravenes FIFA's political neutrality. FIFA is supposed to be a politically neutral organisation. It's supposed to be free from political interference. And a lot of people will look at this and say, well, this is exactly what has happened in this case.
And now we're back to this case. Let's just look at this case and the case of Folarin Balogun. He was sent off, issued a one-match suspension, then that one-match suspension has now been itself suspended or cancelled. We have a number of reactions on this. Let's just listen to what the fans had to say about this, and then we can also look at what the Belgian Football Association was going to say. But let's listen to the fans first.
I think it's more of an Infantino problem than it is a Trump problem. I think fair by Trump for, trying to help out the U.S., trying to do whatever he can, and organizing, I think it was a lawyer team. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to FIFA and Infantino not being who they are, corrupt, however you want to say. I think it's more of kind of their problem, but who knows how that conversation went, what happened there. I'm sure it'll come out over time.
Defender Ngoy got a red card at the end of a match, meaning he was the last man. He pulled the shirt, a justified red card, one match suspension. So it's two weights, two measures. Now, I don't want to say, I don't pretend to say, that football is corrupt. But at least today, I think that worldwide, seeing all the reactions, the comments from big players on TV sets, people find this quite striking.
And this is what the Belgian Football Association, the RBFA, had to say. They put out a statement saying that they were astonished, firstly, and a part of the statement was also the following: in order to safeguard the legitimate rights of all participating teams and to protect the fundamental principles of fair play in our sport, both at this FIFA World Cup and at future editions of the tournament, the RBFA is investigating all potential options. That was just a part of the statement. And I think, Jonathan, the update to that is that they have been given the right to appeal this decision, right?
Yeah, they have. And just to pick up on some of what those fans were saying there, I mean, this wasn't just Donald Trump. Apparently, a lot of US politicians, Andrew Giuliani, who's the head of the World Cup Task Force, were also involved, had recruited teams of lawyers to look at this in conjunction with US Soccer, the US Football Federation. So it wasn't just Trump, and it is unclear whether Trump's call did sway things, but obviously it's the optics, right? And as the Belgian fan mentioned, where do you draw the line here? This has now set a precedent. England had a player sent off last night. Is Keir Starmer going to pick up the phone to Gianni Infantino and ask him to overturn that? You've kind of now set a precedent, and people will be asking, well, what comes next? In terms of the appeal, again, because this is uncharted waters, it's a bit unclear. Belgium, as you say, have been given the right to appeal. That would be FIFA's appeals committee. It's a one-person hearing. The Belgian FA and the US FA have, I think, until about 2 o'clock our time, something like that, to submit their, put their submissions in. The difficulty is the Belgium FA, we haven't even seen an explanation from FIFA as to why this red card was overturned. So there's been no legal reason given for why this has happened. So it's very hard, if you're Belgium, to argue why that decision is wrong when you don't even know the reason for that decision. So it's massively complicated, and we're short on time.
We're short on time, and there's also a question of transparency, right? But there have also been other reactions from other people connecting to the football world. We've had Sepp Blatter, also the former FIFA president, chiming in as well. I don't know how you feel about that. And I think UEFA has been saying something as well. I mean, can you bring us up to speed on what you know so far?
Yeah, Sepp Blatter has been quite critical on X, the social media platform. I think in the past he's also been very critical of some of the decisions that Gianni Infantino has taken, or some of the events that's been happening at FIFA since he was ousted. You might call it sour grapes, and you might call it the pot calling the kettle black, but he does make some valid points in terms of the direction FIFA is going and the whole idea of being politically neutral. UEFA, which is European football's governing body, has released a very strong statement. They basically say that FIFA has crossed the line with this. Again, UEFA and FIFA do have some history. They're kind of two organisations that are both vying for some kind of supremacy in a way. UEFA has its crown jewel tournament, the Champions League, its big money spinner. The World Cup is FIFA. So there's always a bit of friction between the two. I think what will be interesting here is how much backlash there is. Obviously, within Europe, that's a group of member federations. But Gianni Infantino is widely popular elsewhere in the world, South America, Africa. Those confederations have already pledged their support to him to stand for another term. He's not officially announced yet. So even if someone did want to kind of get rid of Infantino, because of the one country, one vote rule for the elections, it makes it very, very difficult.
I mean, it's interesting you also talk about Sepp Blatter, the former president of FIFA, whose term itself was, well, let's say, mired in controversy, and we leave it at that. But just in terms of this appeal that Belgium has filed, I mean, it is time critical, right? Because they have a game coming up against the United States later on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the game now is less than 24 hours away, right?
And so, given that time window and how you explain the appeals process works, how important is this player, Folarin Balogun, to the US national team, and what is his importance there? I mean, he seems to be the one over which all of this is happening.
Yeah, I mean, he is hugely important to the US team. I think if it had been any other player, we wouldn't have been seeing this fuss. But Balogun is a striker. He's the guy responsible for putting the ball in the back of the net. He's their top scorer at the tournament with 3 goals. And by far and away, with all due respect to his teammates, by far and away, their best striker. I don't think anyone else in the squad comes close to him. It's kind of unclear who would replace him if he was then suspended. You know, the US are a team that's not really known for their firepower at World Cups, and yet he's got 3 goals. He scored 2 in the first match against Paraguay. I think that was the first time in nearly a century a US player had scored 2 or more goals in a match. So that just shows how vital he is to the team.
Let's just listen to, what he had to say about the red card that he received last week.
Yeah, I think it was, for me, it's important for me to say, obviously, first and foremost, it was totally unintentional, which I'm sure a lot of people know. But, I think the choice of the referee was, of course, his choice, but I don't think it was the correct call. I think a yellow card would have been fair, just due to it not being intentional, and also, there's not many places I can place my foot in such a scenario. But, I think it's happened, and it's something I have to accept and just move forward from.
I think he was referring the red card there. But as of now, as we are talking, Jonathan, he is set to play in this game against Belgium, pending the results of this appeal that might happen in the next few hours. But tell us a bit about him as a player. To be honest, I'd never heard of him before this incident. But what is his background? And more importantly, how did he come to play for the United States?
Yeah, I mean, he has a very interesting background. There's a really interesting backstory here. He was born to Nigerian parents in Brooklyn, in New York. And the reason for that was they were on holiday in the United States. His mother was, I think, about 7 months pregnant. And the airline didn't allow her to fly back to London, where they lived, because she was too heavily pregnant, they said. So she had to stay in the United States, gave birth to him in the United States. And as we know, that means he gets US citizenship. So along with his British citizenship, he could have also played for Nigeria. So he had the choice between England, the United States and Nigeria. He actually played for England at youth level all the way up to the under-21s. He was also part of Arsenal's youth team. But in 2023, he chose the United States. So I think we can say that England's loss has probably been the United States' gain, a big gain.
It was very interesting you say that he was born in Brooklyn. By chance, right? I mean, if his mother, if his parents had been allowed to fly back to London...
I'm not particularly au fait with airline rules, but, clearly the airline is the one that's kind of... Whoever made that decision for the airline could maybe be thanked, exactly.
But he's basically a recipient of birthright citizenship, something that Donald Trump has railed against, and something that the US Supreme Court ruled, against Trump's executive order that cancelled birthright citizenship, but that's getting all political. It's just worth mentioning.
Irony, I guess, is the word.
Irony. It's a good word to sum up what I was trying to convey in 3-4 sentences. But what happens now? I mean, has this left a sour taste in the mouth? Does this reek of unsportsmanlike behaviour on the part of the United States, the US team, or how would you look at this?
Yeah, I don't think I look at it particularly favourably. I mean, a lot of people, as I said before, are going to be raising their eyebrows, scratching their heads, pick whichever metaphor you want. It's going to be interesting tonight if Balogun does play. If he is somehow involved in deciding the outcome of this game, then I think the scrutiny is going to increase, because, as I mentioned, it's about precedent and where do you draw the line. And if you can, the rules are clear. A red card means a one-game suspension. The referee's decided a red card, one-game suspension. Typically, that can't be appealed. FIFA has used a different article in its disciplinary code to kind of overturn that and effectively veto the referee's decision. But the Belgian FA are saying, well, it's contradictory because another rule, you're going against your own rules, effectively. So it is about precedent, and I think it's also about the political neutrality. And I think for a lot of people, we've heard the UEFA statement, this has crossed the line. Gianni Infantino and his relationship with Donald Trump has finally, potentially, got him into trouble. Whether that's enough for him to be forced to resign or whether he'll be ousted at the next election, that's a different matter.
We need to
I
wait
think
and watch,
there's going to be a lot of backlash.
Right. Now, thanks for discussing that, Jonathan Crane. Thanks for coming into the studio. On that, it's just worth mentioning that Jonathan knows what he's talking about because he's covered World Cups and 3 Olympics as well. Jonathan, thanks very much. But what do you think? Was this a reversing an injustice or a misuse of power from the US president? What could it mean for future tournaments? Let us know in the comments and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.